Check, check. Perfect. Alrighty, guys. We're going to give everybody a couple minutes to get connected before we get started here for the After Schrock today. There was a lot of questions in the Compute This window over there that I couldn't get to during the program. We had a lot of callers, and whenever I don't have callers, I do always try to pay attention to those Facebook questions. But when we have callers make the radio show, so we have to remember we're broadcasting on air too, so it's not just the video and the questions and the comments. So I do appreciate everybody who's interacting and asking questions and comments. I didn't even get to welcome everybody because that was an incredibly busy show. There was moments where I didn't even think we were going to get to the stories that we were supposed to talk about, let alone get any marketing materials in for Schrock and Edgewise anywhere. So anyway, good stuff there. So now, though, we're all Facebook, so now I can just pay attention to the Facebook comments that are coming in and kind of go from there. I will apologize in advance. My daughter's birthday was last night, and she's special needs. The only thing she really loves eating is hot dogs, and so we had like a party, and hot dogs was the main course, right? And so I had a couple hot dogs for dinner, and then we made candy necklaces, so I ate some candy, and then there was bags of Doritos out because she calls them blue chips. She loves Cool Ranch Doritos, so I'm eating some Cool Ranch Doritos. And then I took an antacid and I went to bed. And at 4 in the morning, I woke up with the most awful pain in my abdomen, and I've already had my appendix out. So I was like, it's probably nothing seriously medical. I should just go back to sleep. So I closed my eyes and just tried to kind of grunt through it and go back to sleep. And around 4:30, I'm just tossing and turning. I'm going to wake everybody up. So I'm like, I'm going to have to get up in an hour anyway, so I may as well just get up. So I got out of bed really early this morning, and I just went downstairs in the basement and walked circles around the basement, and it was just gas. I felt so much better after that. I was like, oh, thank you, Jesus. But the reason I tell you this story is I'm a little punchy because I'm tired. So there's definitely a nap in my future, so I probably won't go terribly long on the Aftershock today, but if I go off on a weird tangent, just kind of digitally slap me and send me back on the track, and I'll be happy to acknowledge your correction. All right, Ronald's here with us. Mary, good to have you. Roger and Karen are here. Richard is here. Ronald is fully understand. Hold on a second. Come on. Fully understand and not a problem, Ronald says. But I'm tired. Roger says I'm back. Good morning from Grand Island where it's cold. It's cold here too. Thomas is back. Loanne is here. Mary is here. Thumbs up on Schrock Innovations Facebook post. Just means I keep getting my top fan ranking. Best Buy reference. You do have a top fan ranking, Mary. I've been trying to post a little bit more regularly on Facebook, so it's not just Compute This, After Schrock. Compute This, After Schrock. So after the show, you'll probably notice that throughout the next week, you'll see the articles that we talked about on the program popping up for people who didn't listen to the show. And it gives you an opportunity to interact with the page there if you like as well. Hey, Aaron's here too. Cool. Northwestern Missouri is here. Pat's checking in. Heidi's here. There we go. All right, so we got some stuff to talk about today, though. So I know that Ronald will want me to get right into the crypto stuff, and I know that not everybody is super into crypto. Trust me, this is going to be one of those FTX kind of stories. Or, not everyone is into energy production, but everybody knows about Enron. So it's like that. I don't know exactly what a Lehman Brothers does, but I know when they collapsed, it was bad. That's what this is. And that's why, literally, I sold all my Bitcoin, and it went up $7,000 a coin since I've sold it. There's been a huge rally in crypto, percentage-wise. Just probably the best opening for Bitcoin in years for a year. Normally, Bitcoin is down in January. And normally, looking at all the macroeconomic data, it should be down now, but it's not. And there's not a particular catalyst that is forcing it up that anyone can name, aside from fear of missing out, people jumping on board. I think it's going to drop again. I think it's going to drop substantially again, below 16,000 again, which is why I'm still not buying back in. I'm just, I'm going to bide my time and wait because I think it's going to drop again because there are other shoes that are going to fall in this FTX deal. Now, the reason I say this, there's a really big shoe out there that no one knows what's going on. There's a company. Okay, so when I was with BlockFi, and I recommended BlockFi to a lot of you because I was having a lot of luck with it, you could use BlockFi to deposit your cryptocurrency with them, and then it would be lent out to other parties and you would receive a portion of the interest. BlockFi was not doing the actual lending. They were giving that cryptocurrency to another company called Genesis. And Genesis was the one making the loans and collecting the payments and doing everything and paying the interest to BlockFi, who was passing on a portion to you. So Genesis had a huge loan that they made to FTX. FTX goes bankrupt. Now all of a sudden Genesis is not going to get that money back, so now Genesis is bankrupt. And as a result, BlockFi is now bankrupt, and it goes down the chain. So Genesis just announced their bankruptcy petition this week. There was a hope that maybe they could raise enough money by selling, some assets maybe or something to make to at least remain a viable entity, because other people are still paying their loans back. There's still revenue coming in. It's just not enough revenue. Everybody wants their money back right now. Give me my money back, get it out. Well, there's no money to do that right now, but there could be money to do that over time, you see. So the question is, are they going to exist over time, or are they just going to fold up now, bankrupt, lose everybody's money, and wipe the slate and try to start over? And it looks like that's what they're going to try to do. Now, the problem is Genesis is owned by the Digital Coin Group. Okay? Separate legal entities. Yes, you can bankrupt one company and not bankrupt the other company. That's fine. But the question is, did things get commingled up? So Digital Coin Group is the 800-pound gorilla in the crypto room. They make SBF and FTX look like a joke. Digital Coin Group runs the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust. That's the investment vehicle that you can use if you're a pension or you are like a retirement account or an individual investor, and you want to invest in Bitcoin and other cryptocurrency and crypto-related activities like mining and things like that without actually buying miners and mining Bitcoin yourself. It's like if you want to invest in gold mining, you don't go out and buy a pickaxe and get a mountain and start chipping away. No, you invest in companies that do gold mining. Same thing. So lots of pension funds and retirement, police and firefighters, probably you, probably me, have money in the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust, even if you don't know you do. Now the problem is, the way the trust is supposed to work is when they get dollars in, they buy Bitcoin and they hold the Bitcoin. That's it. But what's happening is it's cheaper. So if I want to buy one Bitcoin worth of shares in the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust, I should be able to buy either one Bitcoin or one share. Okay? But instead I can buy 1.5 shares or one Bitcoin. So why am I getting a 50% discount to buy Bitcoin through the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust instead of just owning actual Bitcoin? Great question. Well, you can't get your money out of the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust very easily. It's hard. There's a lot of exit barriers to get out. So some people don't want to go in. That could be part of it. The other part of it could be that there's a lot of uncertainty around the financial assets of the Digital Coin Group. So one of the things they said, you're a trust, right? So one of the cool things about cryptocurrency is you can show us your public key, and that shows us what's in your wallet. It does not give us access to your wallet. It does not give us a way to hack your wallet. It's not like, now you know where it's at. That's like having the username. Now you just need the password. That's not the case at all in crypto. That's not how it works. We'll go into the details. That's not how it works. Public keys are innocuous. You can give away your public key. The worst thing that happens is everybody knows how much money you have in the bank. This would be like dropping your ATM slip on the ground after you made a withdrawal from the ATM and it had your bank balance on it. That's the level of access that somebody has. Okay? They said, no, we're not going to tell you for security reasons. And everyone in crypto laughed at them because they're like, the only people who would believe this are people who don't know anything about crypto. Is that who your investors are? Because it's completely safe to do this, number one. Number two, because you're a trust, you're supposed to have X amount of Bitcoin on hand. If you have X amount of Bitcoin and you show the proof of that, the value of your shares is going to go up dramatically. by showing what's true. But you won't do that, which makes the value of your shares come down because everyone's like, yeah, if they won't show it, there's probably a reason they won't show it. And we all know it's not security. So, interesting. What happens if there is funny business happening in Digital Coin Group? They own CoinDesk, one of the preeminent cryptocurrency news agencies. It reports news and press releases and things like that. So they have a voice. They've got the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust. They've got all these other irons in the crypto fire. They've got mining facilities. They're doing all kinds of stuff. And now we're calling into question their solvency. What was Digital Coin Group's exposure to FTX? Was it limited to just what was being done through Genesis? Or did the Bitcoin Trust lend Bitcoins through Genesis to FTX? And they've now lost those Bitcoins, and Genesis is now bankrupt, and those Bitcoins are missing from the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust, which is why they won't show us the receipts. That's conjecture. I don't know that that's true. But given everything else that's happened in crypto recently, it's not a hard conjecture to make. And that's one of the big reasons I believe we're going to see another pop in crypto to the downside. All it takes is one headline to break on Digital Coin Group, true or untrue, and you're going to see a 10% swing like that. Easy. It's going to be rough. So there's your update on Digital Coin Group and the Genesis bankruptcy. What's going on there? Let me scroll through the comments here real quick. Morning, Gail. Cheryl and Rich are here. Good morning, Steve is here. James is here. James from Farwell. I thought it said Farewell at first. Like Farewell, Nebraska. Like, is it right on the edge? Like as you're leaving? Farewell. No. Farwell, Nebraska. Pretty cool. All right. Let's see. What else do we have in the mix here? I'm saving the best for last. I'm saving the vaccine story for the end. So you guys just be prepared for that now. What do we got here? Okay. The gaslighting thing. So I'm hearing the news during the commercial break, and they're talking about 16 million people signing up for Obamacare in open enrollment. 16 million new people signing up for it. And I'm thinking to myself, where did the 16 million people come from? Insurance has not gotten appreciably less expensive in the last year, so it's not cheaper than your employer's health policy. We all know that there's way more jobs out there than there are employees. Therefore, anybody who really needs health insurance can probably get it through their job. So who are the 16 million people that are signing up for Obamacare insurance? Could it be that maybe things aren't going exactly the way that the data seems to indicate they're going? There's been a huge divergence in the payroll reports that are the establishment reports versus the ADP actual, this is how many people got paychecks report, and a widening gap of over 1 million jobs. So, but still, 16 million people signed up for Obamacare. So what's going on? Is it these are people that have become unable to work for some reason or another and left the workforce? Are these the widows of those who died suddenly? Is this people who have lost their jobs and are seeking out Obamacare because it's cheaper than COBRA? To tide them through while they look for that next unicorn tech job that like what they had before. I know guys who had some really sweet gigs at big name companies that were local here that have lost those gigs, and it's not. You just have to resign yourself to the fact that you're not going to find a gig like that again. Not here. If you want to relocate, you might, but you're not going to find one like that here. In Omaha, or Des Moines, or Papillion, or you're just not. They're not there right now. So you're going to have to take something else, or you can take unemployment for a while, jump on the Obamacare train, and go that route too. So maybe there's some of that going on, but I don't know. The gas prices are going up. I was reading. I mentioned I tried to post that Best Buy thing, the Let's Talk Papillion, and I just kept checking to see if my post would come up. It never came up, and I'm like, what the heck? But while I was perusing through Let's Talk Papillion, I stumbled across people complaining about their Black Hills Energy gas bill prices. And it's everybody's complaining about the cost of gas right now. I mean, it's almost 30-40% higher than it was last year. And it's amazing. Number one, it's amazing the number of people who have such low financial literacy that they don't understand. I'm using the same number of therms as last year, but my bill is higher. How can this be? Well, the cost per therm went up. That's how that could be. So you're using the same amount, but it costs more per unit. You're spending more money. So if you want to spend the same amount of money, you either need to get on the level plan or you need to use less to offset. You need to use 40% less gas, which is the equivalent of turning your thermostat down to 58 degrees and watching your pipes freeze. Yay. People, I have my thermostat set at 62. This is ridiculous. I'm doubled up on blankets. This is ridiculous. One woman posted, her bill went from $147 a month this month last year to $177. So it was a $30 increase. And her post said, this is ridiculous. If I have another bill like this, it's going to break me. And, I am not an independently wealthy person. I have to get up in the morning and go to work like everybody else, okay? I don't get to, I'm not royalty. I don't get to sit back and sip of my mochaccino in the morning and, do my best impersonation of Klaus Schwab, go eat a $10,000 breakfast or something. That's not my life, right? But on the other hand, I'm not going to be broken by a $30 per month increase, $1 a day increase in my heating bill. The fact that people are that up against it, that you're seeing posts like that on Facebook about people who are that upset about $30, just shows you how tight some of the budgets are out there. And, I look at people on Social Security. I've got family members who subside on Social Security alone. And they got a fat increase this year, right? And inflation is cooling. You hear the news articles, inflation is cooling. But if you put back in the food and the energy, at best it has stayed the same. It's not cooling. It's went up last month and it stayed the same this month. If you put food and energy back in. Now the thing is, people can choose not to buy a new refrigerator. People can choose to not go to Best Buy and get a new floor model dryer because they're closing them out. People can choose not to, they can turn their heat down. People can make choices to influence their economic situation. But you have to eat and you have to use energy. It doesn't matter how little energy you use, you're going to use some. You have to eat and you have to use energy. They take those out of the inflation totals. And that's where we're inflating. Gas is up 40 cents a gallon in the last couple weeks. Yeah, the election's over now, so gas prices are going crazy again. It's almost like it was planned or something. I don't know. Then, politically, you've got all this stuff. I'm almost at the point where I just want to tune out. I mean, at this point, it's completely obvious there are two standards in the media for how situations are handled. There's the standard when someone who is in favor is accused of something, and there is the standard of when someone who is not in favor is accused of something. Completely obvious that it's different, and the claim to say otherwise just makes me wonder what else you're gaslighting me about. When they say there is absolutely no difference, Merrick Garland says, in the way that these two cases were handled. You can look at it with your Mark I eyeball and see that there's a difference. If you hand me an apple and an orange, and Merrick Garland tells me there is no difference, these are both fruit. There's no difference here. Yeah, one's an apple and one's an orange. Yes, they're both fruit. That orange is probably more valuable. I hear the Florida orange crop is, went south. Orange juice prices are through the roof now. Oh, and guess what? Yesterday, another chicken farm in Connecticut caught on fire. Why are chicken farms burning down? Something like 56 million laying hens. It was the largest egg operation in the country on fire. No one knows why. No one knows if anyone was killed, let alone the birds. No one knows if any persons were killed in the fire yet. But what in the world is happening? What is going on? It's like, okay, our food production is on fire. We are so stupid that we just don't want to make our own energy. We just would rather buy it somewhere else or pretend that we're going to pull it out of the sky, literally out of the sky, which doesn't work. Do you see the story about windmills shattering and collapsing all over the world? Whatever they made this last batch of windmills with that they bought from China, apparently they're a little brittle. They're literally exploding. There's a video. It's rare. One time it's been caught on video. Somebody had a camera aimed at the windmill and the turbine, and literally it was spinning, and it was spinning in a storm, which I didn't think you were supposed to let them work in storms. I thought you were supposed to lock them or something. But it was spinning away, and all of a sudden just kaboom! And I mean, it just exploded. Pieces went everywhere, but it's happening all over the place. These things are breaking because they can't handle the stress that's being put on them. And then, of course, in England, you have these situations where there's periods of the year where there's just no wind. So it's stupid to base your energy policy on windmills. I mean, duh. Solar panels, we're going to pull it from the sky, except now we find out that all the solar panels are made by Chinese Uyghur slaves that are having their organs harvested. Does that really make you want to buy the solar panels? So now we're going to sanction the people employing the Chinese Uyghur slaves to make the solar panels cost more, and then we're going to subsidize them here in America with tax credits to make them cost less. What? I don't get it. I don't get it. Everything's gonna be electric cars all over the place, yet we don't have any infrastructure to charge the cars. And even if we had the infrastructure to charge the cars, we don't have the electricity to charge the cars, because guess what? Your electric car in Nebraska is powered by friggin' coal. You have a coal-fired car. It's electric. And now in some states it actually costs more to fuel your car with electricity than it does with gas, because the cost of electricity has gone through the roof. So it just seems like everything is out of whack, and not just the culture war stuff. It's not like the article. What was there was another one of those horrible transgender children stories this morning that I read. I won't even go into the details because I don't even think it's safe for Facebook. But it was one of those things where it's like, if George Santos wants to go dress up as a drag queen and he's in Brazil as part of entertainment, I might question his choices, but as an adult, if he's having a good time and having fun with it, God bless him. I'm kind of a libertarian like that, I'm not going to go see his show or anything. That was the big joke when I took my son to Vegas to go shoot the big guns over at Battlefield Vegas for his birthday. I took my 16-year-old to Vegas for his birthday. People just were like, like, what did you do with a 16-year-old in Vegas for her birthday? Like, we shot Browning machine guns. Like, pop, 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 pop. Yeah, that was fun. But, I've totally forgot where I was going with this now. No. So, yeah, the big joke was I said, I got us tickets to the RuPaul drag show. It's running in Vegas. And so my son was like, is it a car thing? Like, he's so innocent. He had no idea. Yeah, it's a car thing. Tell your friends you're going to go see RuPaul's drag show. They're going to know what that is. They're going to think it's pretty cool. Oh, he told one guy, and then I kind of got in trouble for that. Oh, bad dad decision number 297. Don't trick your son into joking about drag shows. But like I said, if George Santos wants to go do that, you know what? I don't really care. I'm not going to go see the show. I'm not going to watch the show. But when you bring children into the show and train them to tip the transgender dancer, this is adult entertainment, guys. This is adult entertainment. You cannot bring children into adult entertainment. It's not appropriate. I don't care what you say. It's just not appropriate. If we baseline it down, would you let your child go stick a dollar bill in a G-string on a man dressed as a woman on a stage dancing and gyrating and doing? No, you wouldn't do that. No reasonable person would do that. There are unreasonable people in the world that would do that, apparently, but not. Whatever. So, you see these stories going on. So I'm not even talking about those kind of stories, right? Those are disturbing enough. But I'm just talking about the stories where just something doesn't seem right. Something is not right with, okay, so we're equipping Ukraine with all this military hardware to fight Russia because Russia invaded Ukraine. Russia says they invaded Ukraine because NATO was getting too close, but Russia has taken pieces of Ukraine since the Obama administration with no consequence, so they probably figured they could take the whole thing and no one would do anything about it. But in the meantime, we'd been training the Ukrainians ever since the Russians started taking their territory on how to fight a modern, integrated battlefield infantry war in order to stand up against the Russians. We were never going to make them part of NATO, but we were training them and equipping them and kind of slow rolling everything. And that's where a lot of these documents with Joe Biden, like how much of this was for military stuff and how much of this was like, well, we're not going to give you the guns unless you donate to the Penn Biden Center. That paid Joe Biden $900,000 a year for his job at the Penn Biden Center after he was vice president. Wow. So all that stuff is going on. And so then stop and think for a second. Okay, set aside the emotion of, if that was my country, I would want help. And it's not right what the Russians are doing by invading another foreign sovereign country and killing their people and taking their stuff. Isn't that how Hitler got started with Poland? It's like we've seen this movie before. So yes, I'm not arguing that we should or shouldn't be doing something about it. What I'm saying is, look at what we're doing and why we're doing it, and it doesn't make sense. So we're giving Ukraine a bunch of mismatched military equipment that uses different control surfaces, that uses different ammunition, into a country that obviously has a supply chain situation because they're in the middle of a war, okay? And we're asking them to fight effectively with this. So now the big story was we're giving them tanks. We're giving them the Abrams tanks, right? Well, do you know that we're giving them the Abrams tanks, but we're taking the armor off? Yeah, you can't make this up. I understand why. The tanks have depleted uranium armor that's like top secret. And they're worried that if one of these tanks were destroyed in the field, the Russians would grab the depleted uranium armor, reverse engineer it, figure out how it works, and then put it on their tanks. Okay, fair enough. So we're going to take it off the tanks and give them the Abrams tank without the advanced armor. So it's still a tank, just doesn't have the same advanced armor, which might be why Russia believes these tanks are going to burn, because they don't have the advanced armor. Okay, we gave them Bradley fighting vehicles and something else. I forget what else. There's 3 vehicles that are 3 components that are used to fight, fire, and maneuver in infantry warfare. The third one being the Abrams tank. If you don't have all 3, you can't effectively fight as an infantry force. So now they have the Abrams tank. Now they've got all 3. Do you know what some A-10 Warthogs would do to this fight? I mean, right now, they're literally killing Russians 1 and 2 at a time with homemade bombs dropped from commercial-grade drones. That's not an A-10 Warthog. For those of you who don't know, the Warthog is an anti-personnel aircraft. It's designed to destroy troops and tanks on the ground in areas where you have air superiority. So if you put some F-16s and some Warthog, are we fighting this or are we fighting this? Or is the point to drain Russia? Is that the whole point? Are we using the Ukrainian lives that we're losing, hundreds a day, literally, as a pawn or token to drain Russia economically and militarily so they are not a threat? We're setting them back, and it's just a matter of time. So we're setting them back a decade, 2 decades on the threat board. Iran is supplying them weapons. North Korea is supplying them with shells for their artillery. How far are you falling when North Korea is your arms dealer? It's pretty bad. So yes, haven't we accomplished that mission now? Now you can't just walk away now, right? Because okay, good luck, Ukrainians. Have fun. But we're escalating. We're sending more and more and more. Saw a crazy article, and take it for what it is. It was just one guy talking to his troops, some Air Force general or something, was talking about how he thought we were going to be at war with China by 2025. And he was telling his troops to make sure that that their wills were updated, that their next of kin notification lists were updated, all those life planning things. Maybe he was just trying to get his young troops to engage and get some paperwork done by telling them, we could be at war in 2025 and you could all be dead, so get it done. But he said that he believes that we're going to be at direct war with China by 2025. Now set aside whether he's true or accurate or why he said it. Imagine a scenario where we are in a shooting war with China in 2025. It is estimated that we would use up all of our long-range munitions within the first month of that conflict. Within the first month, we'd have to be building more munitions. What do our munitions need? They need microchips. Where do we get the microchips? We get them from Taiwan. Where are we fighting China? Probably in Taiwan. How do we build new weapons? How do we build replacement rockets for the launchers if we can't get the microchips? That's why we're trying to onshore microchips as rapidly as possible. But we won't have it by 2025. So imagine, 90% of all of our medication comes from China. All of your prescription drugs, 90% of them are made in China. So what happens when we can't get prescription drugs anymore? Or let's say we can get them, but they cost 4 times what they've cost before because we have to pay actual wages to people to make them in modern factories that have been recently built and need to have their investments recouped. So it's not a pleasant situation, when you think about the details of what would go into that. So I don't know. Sometimes you get that feeling like you're missing something, or there's a piece of the puzzle you're not understanding, or something's not straight. Someone is not telling you what there is. You feel like you can't really trust or rely on the institutions that you used to trust and rely on. Remember back when the X-Files came out and every kid wanted to be an FBI agent? It's who says they want to be an FBI agent anymore? Who wants to be a spy in the CIA? It's why would you want to be a part of that? And that's sad. That is sad. So, or is this whole thing one big disinformation campaign that's incredibly effective? So I don't know. I don't know if you feel that way. If you feel like there's something you're missing or something that I don't know. So let me check the comments and see kind of what everyone's saying here. Oh, we got our Tecumseh people here. Thanks for the audio check, Winston. Obamacare. I wonder if the government is subsidizing illegal so they can have health care. Ooh, that would be something, wouldn't it? If a chunk of that 16 million enrollees were undocumented people that came across the border. That could be interesting. I know 2 people that have retired at 62. They can't obtain Medicare until 65. They're getting insurance through the Affordable Care Act. I wonder what percentage of the 60 million are doing the same. Yeah, it could be people retiring, leaving the workforce. Electric cars in Omaha. Call OPPD and ask them this. I live in a circle. We have decided to all go in on electric cars. Do we need any special permits or considerations from OPPD to make this work? Their reply will be only one household can have an electric car. The grid is not set up to handle the higher demand. Oh, crap. Are you joking with me, Ronald? So if multiple people on a street put a supercharger in their garage, like a rapid charger for a car, there's not enough power to run those? Like right now for multiple people on one circuit? Yeah, if there's a war with China, Buy America will be the #1 priority. You're absolutely right, KJ. That was one of the things. That's where my brain went to. I was like, what can you do to prepare for something? What can you do to prepare for something like that without going completely nutso? Like I'm going to buy the old denim factory down the street and refurb it. I was driving by the old H&H buildings from Dodge Street, 108th and Dodge, and I'm like, God, these are just beautiful buildings. Like, it pains my entrepreneurial heart to see them just sitting here idle. There's got to be something that can be done with these. But I've looked into, like, what would it take to create an injection molding facility in Omaha? We do have 2 or 3 of them in Omaha, actually, companies that do injection molding. And when you sit down and you look at what they have to do and how they have to go through and how thin they're already operating, there's one guy who designs the molds. There's one guy who runs the injection machines. There's one guy who manages the crew. I mean, it's like a 5 or 6 person staff, and to have one piece designed is like $20,000. Just to have it designed, not actually made, just the mold made is like $20,000. Because how many molds are they making in a week, right? China, the same mold costs $1,200, and it's done within a week. So I was like, hey, can I have my mold made in China, bring it back here, and then have you guys make the plastics? They're like, oh yeah, we can do that. The molds are the same, but then at least you're producing it locally. But that's the problem. It's like there's no way. The cost is so much higher to do it domestically because of the cost of labor. We almost would need full automation or full AI, basically, to bring the cost of production down to a point where America can compete on a global level. Now, competing on a global level is one thing. Having access to something because you can't get it anywhere else is something else. You'll pay a lot more for something if you can't get it somewhere else. So if it's made in America or you don't get it, you'll buy the made in America because that's your choice. That's what you have, and you'll pay more for it. And that then would cause a lot of manufacturing to come back to America really fast. But all the same, I mean, do you really believe they'd build it here, or would they try to send it down to Mexico? Or, can we put this in like Guatemala or something, instead? Something that's closer, like nearshoring? That's the new term, nearshoring. Instead of offshoring, it's nearshoring. We still don't want to make it here, you see, but, we can maybe get Guatemala or Venezuela maybe, someplace like that. Okay. Totally opposed to electric cars. Makes no sense in rural Iowa. Yeah, electric cars don't make a ton of sense. Now, you see, my F-150 is a hybrid. I think it has a capacitor. I don't think it actually has a battery because it charges really quick, like from braking and things like that. And then it uses that charge to help accelerate me from a stop. That first acceleration that uses so much fuel. It'll use it when I'm just casually accelerating or going downhill. It'll turn the engine off entirely. And charge the battery, the little capacitor up while it's doing that. Then when I hit that other side of the hill, for halfway up the hill, I'm running on battery power. So literally like 30% of every trip I take in my truck, unless I'm on the interstate or something, is usually battery. And it's caused the miles per gallon of my truck to go way up. That's a super smart use of electric energy in a vehicle, right? I mean, you're getting more miles per gallon. You're getting more utility out of your vehicle with less expense. That's great. I mean, what happened to the hybrids that had a gas engine and had an electric motor that could when you ran out of juice, the gas engine would take over? What happened to that? Or the ones that would use them both so you can get like 40 miles a gallon driving a car? What happened to those vehicles? Why does it have to be all electric or all gas? Why can't we use the tech smart? I don't understand it. Yeah. All right, so the article that you've all been waiting for. This story appeared, I don't remember how I found it. I think it was on maybe Liberty Daily or Drudge or something like that. It says, the headline, this is from IQFY.com, okay? IQFY.com. Headline, they knew, why didn't the unvaccinated do more to warn us? I don't usually read whole stories on the air like this because it's, no one really likes to listen to someone read a news story. But this one is so out there that I want you to decide whether you think, I want you to comment whether you think it's satire or whether you think this is a legitimate story. The unvaccinated knew what we didn't. Some of them said too little. Most said nothing at all. A lot of blood is now on their hands. As the world struggles to come to terms with the devastating effects of the COVID-19 pandemic, one question that continues to surface is why the unvaccinated didn't do more to warn us about the potential dangers of being injected. While well-intending citizens lined up, did the right thing, and received their COVID-19 vaccinations, now seeming to do more harm than good, their unvaccinated friends stood by and let them do it. Some of them said too little and some said nothing at all, even though they knew what we didn't. Our blood is now on their hands. Those are strong words, but the unvaccinated had access to important information about the potential side effects. They knew about the risk of severe allergic reactions, blood clots, and other serious health complications. They knew the vaccines did not immunize us. They knew it wasn't effective and that they could cause more harm than good. They knew all of that, but instead of warning us, the unvaccinated chose to remain silent. They chose to look the other way and not speak about the potential dangers of the vaccines. They let millions of good folks who did the right thing at the time fall to death and disease, and many anti-vaxxers even gloated online about how their coin flip had been the right bet. The more diabolical even urged folks they disagree with to go get boosted. Yeah, Democrats, go get boosted. Oh my gosh. It's become all too clear. The silence of the unvaccinated was a dangerous, sociopathic, and irresponsible decision that had serious consequences for those who received their vaccinations. And silence, after all, is consent. It's time for the unvaccinated to take responsibility for their actions and to work with the rest of us to find a solution to this crisis. We cannot afford to let their selfishness and lack of action continue to harm our communities. It's time for the unvaccinated to step up and do the right thing. The unvaccinated should, by any moral measuring stick, have done more to warn about the potential risks, to help us make informed decisions about our health, and they must now ask for our forgiveness. And, hand to heart, we may just give it to them, because we're good people. We took those injections because it was the right thing to do, until it wasn't. Okay. There's a lot to unpack there, but the first question you have to ask is this a real story? Or is this like Babylon Bee? Is this satire? Is this somebody trying to make a point? It has all the hallmarks of satire, right? Just enough truth to be plausible. Okay, so there have been scientific reports that have been released recently that show people who are vaccinated, or more specifically people who are boosted, there is a relationship between the number of times you're boosted and the number of times you will get COVID. In other words, you get it more if you get the vaccine, which makes no sense. But it keeps you from getting hospitalized, right? The vast majority of people in the hospital now are vaccinated. So I'm not here to debate all that, because that's a rabbit hole that people fight in. And that's why I stopped talking about it. Because every time I said, are you guys sure this is a good... Do you remember when I filled in on KFAB and I did a whole segment about... I expected something different, honestly. I tried to get someone from UNMC to come on, talk about the benefits of vaccination. Nobody would come on and talk. They're like, we're not coming on that conservative station. And when I asked the listeners, did you get vaccinated? Every single one who called in said that they got vaccinated, and then they gave and I said, well, why did you get vaccinated? What was your reason? What was the decision? And in large part, it was to keep the people around me safe. And now we know that that was a lie, because the vaccine, by its own admission, Pfizer's own admission, does not stop you from transmitting COVID to other people or from catching COVID. So the whole, I take it to keep the people around me safe, was not true. Okay? Whether they knew it wasn't true at the time, we'll give them some grace, but it is not true. We know that now. So there's just enough truth in this article to say, okay, I'm sorry. And then I personally know somebody who was a perfectly healthy 40-something-year-old guy. And when I say perfectly healthy, I don't mean healthy like Thor, where, I'm a few Doritos short of a bag, if you know what I mean, in my gut. This guy was a marathon runner. This guy, not like the marathon runner guy that was super skinny and only eats pasta and no, this was the guy that would go run marathons for fun. He run a marathon and run a 5K for fun after not having trained for a while. So he was in good shape. No previous conditions, no genetic anomalies, nothing. He's having his entire genome done now because he wants to know, did my heart stop for no apparent reason? Medicine cannot find a reason why his heart stopped. He has no blockages. The electrical signal just stopped shortly after he received his 5th booster. So he wants to know, did my heart stop because of my booster? Or do I have some predisposed genetic condition that I didn't know about before that caused my heart to just randomly stop beating? This is an important thing to know. The guy's got kids. So yeah, when your wife is resuscitating you on the bathroom floor, you want to know if it's because the unvaccinated didn't warn you. So it is plausible that people would be angry that they were tricked, cajoled, pandemic of the unvaccinated, remember that one? Into taking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 shots that didn't do what they were supposed to do initially. Now they're showing that there's science that the people who were boosted actually have worse health outcomes than the people who just got the initial shot. My personal theory on that is no one knew how to handle the shot initially, so a lot of the mRNA was probably inert by the time it was injected because it got too warm or wasn't handled appropriately. Whereas by the time the boosters came around, everybody knew how to do it. They had the right equipment to keep it negative 30 degrees and everything else. And a lot of that mRNA was actually viable when it was injected. So the boosters were much more effective than the original shot, I think. That's why. But anyway, I'm not a doctor, you see. One of my neighbors literally on Facebook got into it with me about how I'm selfish for not getting the shot because I'm not protecting the people around me and I'm going to kill her kids. She didn't say it just like that, but between her and the comments of her friends, that was what it was. What it became very clear is that if I wanted harmony in my neighborhood with my neighbors, the people that I see every day, I needed to shut up. I'll make my choices, you make your choices, we don't need to talk about them. Hi, good morning. Good to see you. How are the kids? Oh, it's your birthday. That's so nice. Great. So yeah, I could see people now who treated people that way back then, if this story is true, turning around and saying, and being upset about it, and then expressing that level of upset as anger. Like, why didn't you warn me? It's like, because every time I tried, you told me I was a selfish, narcissistic biscuit licker, so to heck with you. I just stopped trying to tell you. Or, I know a woman who is a nurse, and she did not take the shot. She was told by the hospital she worked at she would have to vaccinate to work there, and she left and worked at a private medical clinic instead so she wouldn't have to do it. Then one of her kids, on his own volition, just went out and got the shot. And she was just devastated. And her kids are like, oh, that's crazy mom, oh, the Trump virus, Mom, you're so crazy. I'm sure it's safe and effective and fine. It's been tested. And she's like, no, you don't understand. I actually read the literature. There is no, the insert for the vaccine is blank. They didn't even print the warnings. Like, there's nothing. They didn't. Anyway, so yeah, she was just devastated when her kid got it. Now she's like, I worry about him every day. I worry about that one day I'm going to get a phone call that his heart just stopped for no reason. Leading cause of excess death is unknown reason. So anyway, so there's enough truth here that you'd think that maybe this is true, but it's so outrageous and so strongly worded that you're like, there's not a chance this is true. This has to be satire. But then again, some people in our political sphere say outrageous, crazy things all the time, and they're taken seriously. So maybe this is just somebody who is speaking outrageously. Maybe. It turns out. Oh, let me tell. Before I tell you, I want to read your comments to see if you think it's satire. Okay, here we go. Scrolling up. There we go. Okay. I read the article while waiting. Oh, Aaron, I thought you said you read the article while you were waiting to go in for electroshock. And I know you're in a rehab center. And I was like, oh, sweet baby Jesus, Aaron. Bite the plug. Bite the rubber thing. You need that. Oh, God. That's not what she said. She said while she was waiting for the After Schrock, but she was all one word. So went to their Twitter page. It took a while to find out. Okay, so Aaron thinks that it's satire. Janine says people that attempted to warn others got shut down in social media. That's very true. Gloria, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink, as the saying goes. We were saying it, but it was their choice. I hope it's satire. Okay, so we have 2 votes for satire. The unvaccinated did try to tell everyone, just look at the dump file on Facebook and Twitter. Okay. The unvaccinated story sounds like the fox telling the story while sitting in the hen house. Okay. I'm not vaccinated. Okay. Chat GPT strikes again. Okay. I wonder if Chat GPT could write satire. That would be an interesting thing to ask it. I've been reading medical articles published in journals about the vaccine. It's been known for a while the vaccine is dangerous. They've just been shutting people down who question it. Okay. Biscuit liquor? Oh, yeah. Well, it's better than some of the other things that could have come out of my mouth. I told you I was tired, okay? You see, when you have kids, you make up, you fudge knuckler, like, what does that even mean? It doesn't mean anything. It's better than saying, shut the front door, So, you come up with little things that you could say, and, then your kids learn them and repeat them when they're old, and it's funny because they think they made them up and they didn't. This is just another sadistic method of making people hate to the extreme. Okay, so the article is satire, poorly labeled satire, but it is satire. Actually, because I went to look around for it, and I'm sure this will completely assuage any doubt you have, that the AP did a fact check on this, and it is false. It is satire. A fake screenshot attributes an article on a vaccine risk to a UK professor. So this article that was pulled onto IQFY was actually originally posted somewhere else with a byline, because that's the other thing makes you think it's satire is there's no byline. No one is attributing their reputation to this thing at all. It doesn't say opinion on it anywhere. Like you'd say, opinion articles usually don't have bylines. So that was a standout for me, though. Like, something's not right with this. So this is the story from the AP. While health officials consistently say the benefits of COVID-19 vaccination outweigh the risks, an image shared on social media appears to show that an article from The Conversation, which must be a publication, questioning why unvaccinated individuals failed to warn others about the safety of the shots. But the photo was altered. The nonprofit outlets did not publish the piece, which originated in an apparent satire website. So the photo they're talking about being altered is actually a Shutterstock photo, so anybody could buy it. I don't know what they mean by altered, but maybe they mean they use that picture instead. Let's see. A lot of us knew from the get-go that something just didn't add up when our own research from publicly available documents. We came to the conclusion this was not safe or wise thing to partake in. We tried to warn everyone, and consequently we were labeled dangerous conspiracy theorists. That's what a post on Instagram, trying to make the satire seem more legitimate. The post includes a purported screenshot of a headline from The Conversation, a website that publishes articles from academics and researchers. It says, "They knew. Why didn't they warn us?" Another Instagram post sharing the image says, "We tried, but many were We tried, but many were hard-head, stiff-neck, and rebellious." So anyway, basically what ended up happening is this is a satire article that got picked up on social media, and then somebody on social media somewhere decided it would be funny to amplify it by making it look even more real, and so then it escalated from there. So in a nutshell, the article is satire, but like all good satire, why is the Babylon Bee funny? You ever ask yourself that? Like, you know what the Babylon Bee is, right? The Babylon Bee is a satire website. Let's see. Try to go there here real quick. I'm mistyping it. Okay. Ford releases new safety feature where car shuts off if a woman is in the driver's seat. Obviously satire. Woman in express checkout lane has only 2,387 items over the limit. Okay. Satire. In a hilarious prank, God makes 1 out of every 20 pistachios taste like flaming rotten garbage. I've never eaten a bag of pistachios in my life, but I can imagine, like, if you get that pistachio done turned, I can see that's kind of funny, right? AOC accuses this Chat GPT fellow of wanting to date her. That Chat GPT guy wants to date me. Yeah. After getting into yet another public spat with ChatGPT, Representative AOC has accused the program of wanting to date her. Okay. Babylon Bee. Introducing the Babylon Bee AOC article generator. Our writers spend way too much time writing jokes about how dumb AOC is, so we're using free AI so we can spend time writing more important things. So, I mean, satire. Obvious satire, right? Just a little nugget of truth. The problem with this other article is there are so many nuggets of truth in it. And there are actual questions if the risks of the vaccine outweigh the benefits or not. Or if the benefits outweigh the risks, I should say. In fact, in the UK now, they're saying no shots for anyone under 50 unless you're in a risk group. You don't need them. Nobody under 50, which is the heart disease risk group, the people whose hearts are stopping. So unless you need them because you're in a risk group, like you have, stage 4 cancer, or you've got a compromised immune system or something, then maybe you need the shot. But if you're under 50, you don't need it. That's their official policy now. So anyway, I won't go down the rabbit hole, but I thought that article, I posted it on my personal Facebook because I wanted my neighbor to see it, and I said, satire? Is this real or satire? ? And just left it sit there because that'll cause people to open it and read, which then will at least introduce the concept into people's brains, the question that every reasonable person should always ask themselves: could I be wrong? Ask myself that all the time. Could I be wrong? Do I think I'm right? Sure, of course I'm right. Here's my evidence to back me up. If you spend as much time looking for evidence to back up your story as you spend looking for evidence to offset it, you'll realize that there are times when you can be wrong about things. And describing it as a coin flip, like take the shot, not take the shot. No shot. Guess I'm an anti-vaxxer now. And that's the thing. It's like, now if you don't want the COVID-19 shot, you're anti-all vax. And if you're an anti-vaxxer now, and that's not the case with most people. Most people are like, polio vaccine is fine, like it stops you from getting polio. COVID vaccine stops you from I don't know. No. Huh. Stops you from having a severe hospitalization. That's what the line is. So anyway. All right, last call for questions, guys, before I fall asleep here. I'm tired today. All right, I think it's all the young people who keep dropping dead from undiagnosed heart problems that may be from the vaccine. Yeah, I hear you, Aaron. I will be, hold on a second. It will be years before we know what the vaccines really did. You're absolutely right, Steve. The data is going to come out over time, and the reason we need the time isn't because the time is required to collect the data. We need the time so that people will become distant enough from this that they will forget all of the horrible, nasty, mean things that they did and said to each other. The people who freaked out on people for not wearing a mask. The people who did stupid stuff like put underwear on their head and call it a mask. It's a thong, it's on my head, it's a mask. I'm going to walk around your store with a thong on my head. Because this is how absurd your mask policy is. I mean, lots of people did stupid stuff during the pandemic to just unnecessarily pissing people off, right? But seriously, did anybody think the arrows on the grocery store lanes were doing any good for anybody? Yeah, the whole thing, I think, okay, if I was Thorstradamus, if I had access to him right in front of me and asked him to give me a prediction 20 years into the future of the post-mortem on the COVID-19 pandemic, I think the post-mortem will be, it was a bad flu and we shouldn't have shut the country down. Now, you can't say that on Facebook. I just did. Can't say that either. Oh, shoot. Biscuit lickers. But I think that's what the postmortem is going to say 20 years from now, is we shouldn't have shut the country down for this. This was not, this was fear porn on steroids. And it wasn't, at least by the time it got here, it was not terrible. Now, I don't know how 80 million people or whatever are dying of COVID in China right now. Like, why would that be true, but that's not happening here? Or is it happening here and we just don't know? I don't know. Maybe that's why we can't hire anybody, can't find any employees, because they're all dead. It's the rapture, and we got left behind. That's what happened. So I don't know. That's the thing. It's like, I think you're right, Steve. It's going to take some time and some distance for everyone's emotions to cool, everybody's positions to forget where they were at and why. And when you go and you walk through the marketing of the pandemic from the and when I say that, it has a negative connotation, like they were trying to spin it or something. What I mean is like the public messaging from the pandemic. It was 2 weeks of quarantine to stop the spread, right? Because the hospitals were going to be so overwhelmed that they wouldn't be able to handle the load. We had people like dying on the street corners outside the hospitals, like in China. So we canceled all non-essential surgeries and things like that. Told people they can't come to the hospital, and to make room for all the COVID-19 patients we were going to have. And again, in another situation of the old Mark I eyeball, why do nurses have time to make TikTok dance videos on the job if they're so incredibly busy? Was that just a stress relieving situation where they're like, we're so stressed out from all these dying patients on ventilators and it's so boring? I mean, you go in, you're like, yep, you're still plugged in. You come back out, then let's make a TikTok video. Yay. No, they were bored. I've talked to nurses in Omaha. There were patients. There were times when things were very busy. There were times when the nurses were shorthanded. It wasn't because of the number of patients. It was because of the number of nurses. There weren't enough nurses to go around, especially when everybody was terrified and wanted to stay home. If you take everyone who is a nurse, who is also a hypochondriac, and remove them from the nursing pool, that was just enough, apparently, to like screw up the whole thing. Which is why now nurse recruiting, I had an employee I tried to hire, and she was doing nurse recruiting. I'm like, how does that work? Like, do you break your arm and then go to the ER and be like, you're really good at your job, you've ever considered moving to another hospital? Like, how do you recruit nurses? And she goes, it's slimy. Like, it is slimy. You literally go find people working other places and you tell them they can make more money by moving. And then you get them to apply, and then you get them to get into an interview. Then you get the job offer figured out for them, and then you get them the offer, and then you ask them if they're going to take the offer. And literally, it's like you're hounding this person to move employers, basically. It's called nurse recruiting, which it just sounds like a bottom feeder thing because you're going to move nurses from one place to the other, right? You're like an arms dealer. You don't really care who wins the war. You're getting paid to move the guns. You don't really care. But I mean, that is now coming to an end. Like, that industry has peaked and is now sharply declining because now the nurses are back. Where did they go? A lot of them didn't come to work. They didn't want to get COVID. You blame them? It was going to kill everybody. And where were you going to get it? At a hospital. So I don't know. And there are definitely places that got busier than other places. I'm not trying to make a blanket statement that is 100% accurate. I just know I didn't appreciate watching the messaging coming out of UNMC about the pandemic and about the things that were being presented as medical fact when they were just regurgitations of things that were said by the CDC that were not backed by any documented medical fact. Like the 6-foot rule. There is no science behind standing 6 feet away from somebody. The masking. Now we're just starting to hear about all that. The hand sanitizer. It's a respiratory disease. It doesn't spread on surfaces. We didn't have the science, though. So you can excuse people for being overcautious, right? I was at Ollie and Hobbs restaurant Friday with my wife. for lunch. And one of the gals that was sweeping the floor in there was wearing a mask. And I'm just like, really? You're like the only person in the building wearing a mask. Like, maybe she has cancer. I don't know. So we're back to that now. Maybe there's a reason that she's wearing it. Maybe there's a reason that's important to her. She's not really hurting me by wearing the mask. So I don't really care. If she wants to wear a mask, she can wear a mask. You know, if she wants to wear a hoodie while she mops the floor, I don't care if she's wearing a hoodie. Her employer might, but I don't care. Whatever, I don't care. She's mopping the floor. She's doing her job. She's not, I don't have to talk to her. I don't have to understand her. I'm deaf in one ear, so the masks were horrible for me because I get a lot of my information when I'm listening to you from your lips moving and your facial nonverbals. Because I don't always hear things so well, or I hear the syllables and I can take the sentence and make two separate sentences out of it, which is a great party trick, right? So like, did you just say Snuffleupagus was a, you're like, what? No, I didn't say that. I said, this stuff is delicious. Snuffleupagus, what? And ha 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 ha, But when you're trying to understand a customer who's talking to you and they're trying to describe a problem, it's not so ha ha ha. And I'm leaning in, I'm listening. And then the customer's like, can I just take this off? I'm like, please. So we drop our masks and we get the job done. I worked through the whole pandemic, and I did get COVID. I got Delta at one point. And it was nasty. It knocked me on my butt. And it takes a lot. I don't get sick, so it takes a lot to knock me on my butt. So it was not fun. My wife got it. It was not fun. My kids got it. It was not fun. My daughter bounced back in a day. My son, who's 16, took a little bit longer. It was like the littles didn't get it as bad. Kind of like when they said little kids don't get COVID. Can't say that because they can get COVID. Yes, they can get COVID, but they're at substantially lower risk of having a negative outcome from having COVID. To them, it's just another sniffle. And that's how it was for my kids. It knocked me on my butt, though. Knocked my 16-year-old out. My wife was down for a week. But, I know a guy who had brain fog for and fatigue for months afterwards. But he was also vaccinated because his job required it. And he had one of those unicorn tech jobs, so he got the vax. So, yeah. So, I don't know. Anyway, enough about that. I just thought that story was entertaining because it was close enough to the truth to be true, but just outlandish enough that it could be satire. And sometimes the line is a little blurry, so it helps to be able to figure out what is truth and what is satire. All right, last call for comments and questions, then we're going to wrap her up. I hope society actually learns from the vaccine and not to trust anyone without the research. Well, I mean, Ronald, this isn't the first time that there's been a vaccine that's screwed up. Honestly, I think it's like a generational thing. So 30 years from now, just like now, nobody remembers what it was like to fly in an airport before 9/11. Nobody remembers being able to walk all the way to the terminal and wave goodbye to grandma as her plane took off out the window. No, there was airport security, but there was no I don't know what rays you're shooting through my body scans. There was no back of the hand pat downs. There was no, it was the joke. You can't say bomb at the airport. Bomb, 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 bomb. Yeah, don't do that now. It was a different world before 9/11, and nobody remembers that now. So now if you say something like, why do we have the Department of Homeland Security? Why do we have the TSA? The TSA is a completely unnecessary federal bureaucracy. Eliminate it. Well, how will we be safe on airplanes then? Well, airlines can pay for security. There you go. Well, they can't run it. They're going to screw it up. Look at what happened last time. Look at what happens all the time with the TSA. People get things through there all the time. Literally, we're flying back from Florida, and I bought fudge for my son. And literally, like, the density of this material is setting off the alarm. So they pulled me aside for a secondary screening so they could run a test strip across my fudge to make sure it wasn't plastique. You know, like, boom, I bought a brick of plastique upon the plane. Yes, yes. No, it's fudge. Sure, it's fudge. Yeah. And they weren't joking when they were testing it either. I'm like, you could just take a bite, rather than touching all over it, you could just take a bite. He's like, I can't do that. I didn't want you to take a bite of my son's fudge. Gosh. All right. Thor, this place doesn't have that kind of money to have electroshock. It's a physical therapy hospital, not a nut house. Although sometimes I wonder. Well, I just thought, when I was quickly reading, I thought it said, instead of aftershock, I thought it said electroshock. And I was like, oh God, Aaron, bite the rubber thing. I've seen that in the movies. That's the only thing I know about electroshock. I don't think they do it anymore, Aaron. I think they've kind of determined that was like not effective. Maybe they do. I don't know. The Winter Soldier had electroshock. That's all I know. It'll be years before we know what the vaccines really did. Let's see. I was in good shape, a U.S. Masters lap swimmer, and I had a heart attack in the water. Thank God I survived with a stint. Oh, man, Richard. Well, we're glad you survived, too, because otherwise you wouldn't be here talking to us, so that's good. So, yeah, I mean, people can have heart attacks, I guess it doesn't mean it's a vaccine thing. It happens, too. But now it's like every time it happens, it's like a story. Only 5 people have collapsed on an NFL field, and 4 of the 5 have been spinal injuries. And 23-year-old guys, their hearts don't just stop for no reason. It just doesn't happen. And if it does happen, it's incredibly rare, like worldwide kind of rare. Single digits in the year kind of rare. How many have we seen? It just makes you wonder. Again, you're seeing something with the Mark I eyeball. Now, maybe we weren't seeing all of it before. Kind of like when there's a plane crash, you hear about it so much that you think planes aren't safe. They crash all the time. Actually, no, planes are the safest way to travel. They take off and land all day long. But when one goes down, you hear about it. You don't hear about every car crash. But you hear about every plane crash for sure. I think all the young people who keep dropping dead. Okay, let's see. Babylon Bee is awesome. Yes, it is. Okay, I could be wrong about a lot of things, but I think I made the right decision not getting the vaccine before it was fully tested. That's true. It's not too late to get the vaccine. Like if you wanted to go get it now, if you avoided getting it before and you wanted to go get it now, you could still go get it. If you feel that, now it's been tested well enough and you know what the risks are. Yeah, absolutely. The people who died in nursing homes and no one was allowed to be with them at the end. Yeah, that. Yeah, Ronald, I don't even want to think about that. Those poor people dying by themselves, or with a video screen in front of them, where their family watches over a Zoom call while somebody dies. The stupid things the humans will allow other humans to do. Oh, let's see. Janine, I'm a nurse. Perhaps the shortage was caused by nurses getting fired for refusing to get the vaccine. I worked during the pandemic and never feared getting sick and never got anything but a minor cold. Yeah, and that's the thing. I don't think they were firing them. Well, obviously before the vaccine was out, they weren't. And then when the vaccine did come out, there was a big kerfluffle about it. And I know that's why my nurse friend, she left the hospital she was at because there was an exemption policy in place, and she was able to get the religious exemption. And then basically word came through the grapevine that religious exemptions were no longer going to be honored. And as a result, she found another practice that was run by a Christian doctor that wasn't going to make her do that, and she didn't do it. So there you go. But anyway, so yeah, we won't do enough to get banned by this because Facebook is still banning people. That's Twitter that's not. So Facebook is still banning people. But all the same, guys, thanks for joining us. I hope it was entertaining at least. Not super serious. Kind of feel like we ended on a Debbie Downer. Like and death and dying alone. That's not good. But I do appreciate you joining us here for the After Schrock. I appreciate you telling your friends about Schrock. It means the world to us. It scares the biscuits out of me when I see major businesses within a mile of my shop going bankrupt, or I shouldn't say going bankrupt. I should say going out of business for whatever the reason. there is no national announcement about Best Buy closing stores. There is no like, hey, we're going to close 500 stores in our earnings call. So what this is telling me is that there's some kind of Best Buy earnings coming soon. I don't know. Ronald, or somebody can probably tell me when Best Buy earnings are. We're in earnings season here, but my guess is they're going to come in real bad, and as a result, Best Buy's already got plans to cut staff. You have to close stores. To close stores, you have to close out floor models. So let's get that process started. So by the time the bad news hits, we can already say in the next quarter we're going to be doing so much better because we've closed underperforming stores and let people go. That's probably what's going on, and it's going to go on in a lot of other businesses too. And again, you don't know what to think. You want to trust the news that you're hearing. You see the stock market going up. You see interest rates going up. You see Bitcoin going up. And you're like, man, maybe I'm missing out. Maybe I need to jump in on this rally. I waited a long time on the last one, and I missed out on a lot of good gains there. But then again, there is no abject reason any of this is happening. The earnings are coming in worse than expected in many cases. Some people are overperforming, but Intel was atrocious. So everything is pointing, credit card usage. So during the pandemic, at the tail end of the pandemic, the majority of people were using debit cards and not credit cards. Now that has inverted. Hardly anyone is using a debit card and everyone's using a credit card. What's the difference? Debit cards are money you have in the bank. Credit cards are money you're going to pay back next month. So people are out of money. They're out of disposable income. They're using credit cards now to finance, to float around. And all it takes is one thing to blow up in your life. One water heater, one car repair, one furnace breakdown. And all of a sudden, that was going to get paid off this month. Now it's not. And now you have a problem. And that problem is going to multiply at 26 to 30% interest. It's not a good place to be, especially for younger people who were brought up on things like a firm where you could they didn't do layaway. No one does layaway anymore. Everybody does, what do they call that? Buy now, pay later. And so you could get this Subway sandwich for 4 easy payments of $2.97. What? No, I'm not joking. You can actually finance a sandwich in some sandwich shops with a firm. It's stupid. But it is what it is. Buy now, pay later. So you feel really bad for people who don't understand the way money works because they've never been taught. And now they're being thrust into this new world. And it is not going to be a fun time. All right, guys, got to roll. Thanks for joining us. Have a great afternoon. We'll see you again next week for another edition of Compute This.